No mattresses, you can put anything else
Live.
in there you want.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, September 20th. I'm Pete Berube. I'm the chairperson of the Millis Finance Committee. I call the meeting to order and ask that the committee members introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Lohr.
John Lohr.
Sarah Reyes.
Peter Underhill?
Jen Zaretsky.
Jody Garson.
Joyce Boyardi.
Kathy McInnes.
Michael Crone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We have, I would say, a short agenda tonight. We've been discussing over several weeks whether or not the Finance Committee will take a position, will issue a position on the Tri-County Vocational Technical High School construction project. We've heard a number of different opinions. We've had some discussion on it, and my intent is that we have a little bit more discussion and that we actually vote whether or not we take a position, not what that position will be. My intent would be that we would, depending on the vote, that we would defer that until next week at the earliest, and perhaps if we need more time to discuss or more information, that we would maybe at the latest the following week. So tonight, my intent is to finish our discussion on whether or not we will issue a position, and then again, depending on how that vote goes, hopefully we would be able to vote on that position for next week. So I just want to maybe bring one piece of information and then let the committee discuss. Previously, I actually think up until the tri-board, which was held 2 weeks ago on the 6th, that the understanding was that that the ballot measure on the 24th would include a vote for whether or not to have to support the project or not, and then another vote to whether or not the voters at that same time would have another ballot as whether or not they would support an override. And that the understanding was that after that point, there would be a warrant article to authorize a borrowing or a lending. And it's come to my attention through the town administrator that that last piece is actually not the case. And the reason for that is because the bonding would be done by Tri-County. It would be done by that entity. They would be the bondholders, and essentially after, if the project were approved by the ballot on the 24th, the bond would be taken out by Tri-County. It's in their name. We would just be paying our portion through whatever means necessary or chosen by voters and appropriated to make those payments. Our share, prorated share, has been explained on how the tuition, if you will, is calculated. So there will not be a warrant article on this particular issue. We've discussed that the Finance Committee and our charter says that we will make recommendations on warrant articles. We've had numerous discussions on that. It doesn't say that we can't do other things, but it does say that that is the intent of the Finance Committee. I believe that this issue is a bit of a hybrid. It's a bit of an anomaly because this process is a bit out of the ordinary due to laws and regulations that were written in the 70s on how vocational schools are funded. And for one way or another, the bill that's going to come due, if this passes, will be subject of a warrant article. It is, in my opinion, it's either going to come up in the fall town meeting, or up until recently, it was going to come up in a fall town meeting warrant, and now it's going to be the subject of a spring town meeting warrant in the operating budget, and now likely not until the construction is done and the bill needs to be paid. But it will eventually be part of a warrant article because it deals heavily with town finances. Again, our share of the construction costs will become part of the town's operating budget one way or another if the project passes. And that's why I personally think that we should take a position on it. I don't think it's a tremendous reach for the Finance Committee to make a recommendation one way or another. And again, I definitely want to separate the issues. I'm not trying to put one before the other. I don't think I've made my position known on, and frankly, I haven't come to a position one way or another whether to support the construction or not. But I firmly think that it's well within the Finance Committee's purview to make a recommendation to the town because this will affect town finances. And I'll just lay that out there as a kind of a point of discussion for everybody to please make your feelings known or ask your questions to those that are here.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Garzon.
So if I understood correctly from our tri-board meeting, the funding would potentially come from an operational override, but it's kind of a unique vote that it would fund the 30-year cost. Is that correct? Do you want to speak to this, Mr.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Town Administrator?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. Yes, it would be a debt exclusion for believe a 30-year period during the payment of the bond. And just to follow up briefly with what the chair had mentioned, it had not come to my attention until, because I haven't really dealt with such a large regional school project in quite some time, that our bond counsel informed me that there actually is no legal requirement to have the article before town meeting, because the article essentially authorizes the town to take out debt or issue debt. The town is not issuing any debt, whether or not the item passes. The district is issuing the debt, and the district will assess every town in the district their apportionment of the debt. So I believe that the select board is placing their debt exclusion ballot question on a separate ballot on the same day at the same time as the regional school ballot.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
What I understood from what Craig said was that it wasn't necessarily a debt override, it was an operational override that would go for 30 years, matching the allocation of the debt to us as a school district for the term of that project.
Right, the Prop 2.5 terms often get confused or used interchangeably. They're both essentially Prop 2.5 overrides.
Right.
One type is the operational override, and the other is a debt exclusion. Even though we're not issuing the debt, district is, we're requesting the town consider a debt exclusion.
Okay.
So the big difference is it's limited to the amount of the assessment to the town only for the period of time until the debt is paid off. So it's not permanent. It may seem permanent because it's 30 years, it's a bit of time, but it's not permanent, unlike a operational, which gets built right into the town's base of levy and then built on from there.
So it's a hybrid, more or
Yeah,
less.
it's a fixed, separate lockbox.
Right.
Just for pay off the debt.
Okay.
So the amount that would be taxed to pay would, again, in this case, unlike some other debt, will vary year to year based on the enrollment
Right.
at the Tri-County school.
Yeah, that's the difficult part to really quantify.
So, I mean, we've had ranges between 30 children enrolled there to 60. So it's a wide swath of possibilities as to what those assessments will be on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Mr. Crowe?
And I've expressed my opposition to the committee making a recommendation one way or the other on this before, and I'll just summarize it again for our discussion this evening. And it really goes to 2 points. One is the slippery slope. We're a warrant committee. At least that's always been what we've espoused to be. That's what is said formally in the documentation that we are, and I don't disagree that it doesn't say we can't do other things. But the minute we start to make recommendations on things that aren't on warrants, where does it end? Are we going to get a request from the school department one day where they have an innovative method that they want to deploy in terms of financing something? Are they going to ask for our recommendation? Like the town could do something similar to that. They're going to ask for our recommendation. And where does it end? So it's kind of that slippery slope. It's that bleed from one committee to another board that would bother me if we were, in this particular instance, to do that. And I guess for the first time. I don't think there's any other instance in which we've done that, unless I'm incorrect. The other is this. I would ask every member of this board, this committee, do you feel you have enough information on a $290 million project to vote? We have not been a part of this project until about 3 months ago. I have nothing other than a few pieces of paper that have been provided to me with nothing substantial beyond that other than we need a $290 million school. Could we go with a $200 million school, a $190 million school, a $250 million school? We don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just that I don't have that information, but I would ask the committee, if you don't think you have enough information to make a recommendation, yay or nay, then I would say it's not in our purview to recommend to the town what we think should happen with respect to this particular project. And I would just leave it at that.
Mr. Lohr?
Mike, I totally agree with what you're saying. However, I'm on the other side of the fence as well. And the reason being is, over the last 2 weeks at all the sporting events we've gone to with Millis, between my wife and I have asked, every parent out there, if they're aware of Tri-County and this project, the answer is, what is that? They don't even know what it is.
Right.
And to your point, we have a few pieces of paper, and we're ahead of the curve a little bit from the general population. So, I do think that this Tri-County project is a special situation. And I would agree with you, we shouldn't get in the habit of making a stand on regular financial decisions. However, I think the residents are looking for direction. And I think two things. One, it's our duty as a finance committee to take a stand. And two, not to jump ahead, but I don't think we should do it either. I'm a no for it. So, and that's more of a vote than anything. But I think if we do take a stand, members could abstain and not vote if they didn't want to, or they could vote for it or against it. I kind of have a long list of items here of doing things. So I don't know if you want to do discussion now or discussion later.
I really just want to limit our discussion to whether or not we take a position, not what that position will be. Beyond that, I'm happy to entertain any discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just,
Please, Mr. Crum.
One thing to Jonathan's point, I agree. There needs to be information put out to the public. Now, there are two individuals here tonight that can be involved in that, but the selectmen. I mean, this really is the purview of the selectmen. They run the town, as does the town manager and financial director. They have Mr. Kaczynski says he hasn't been involved in one of these projects in a long time. And I'm sure it's difficult for you to even fathom all of the particulars about this, and having been in the business quite some time. So I think rather than the Finance Commission coming with very little data and no background in any of these regional school systems, that the selectmen should be involved in bringing people in, having a town meeting, having that meeting on record, and putting it out to the town exactly what's going to happen, including what will happen if it does pass and what Mr. Kaczynski was talking about today in terms of how we finance it. That would be my recommendation.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Mr. Underhill?
I have a procedural question about, sorry, Mr. Kaczynski, I might have to ask you to answer this one. Just for clarity purposes, if the 2.5 override passes, will this have to be voted on every year for the annual town budget? Every year to be authorized, or does it authorize it for the full 30 years and there'll be no further votes on this?
Mr. Kaczynski?
Thank you. So if the project passes district-wide,
Yes.
and then if the debt exclusion passes, then the only thing that'll need to be voted on after that will be the actual appropriation of the assessment on an annual basis at town meeting. There will be no other ballot questions involving this. But just like all debt that's paid by the town, there's a line item in our budget called debt, and so that'll be loaded into that, basically. And we'll have to pay that assessment as part of that.
Okay.
And actually, the finance director may correct me, but whether it shows up there or shows up under some other line item with Tri-County, which it may, but it'll be an item that you'll see every year on the budget for 30 years, once they take out the bond.
But the vote for the 2.5 override doesn't happen every year. It's
No,
one
that's
time.
one time.
One and done.
One
And
and
I,
done.
want to try to peel that onion back a little bit.
Thank you.
So it is a line item or a sub-line item in the budget, if it passes for the next 30 years. It will be, typically, the operating budget is warrant Article 3 in the spring town meeting. It's somewhere in there. In terms of where the funds and resources come from, essentially, that would get voted on as more or less a blank check for the next 30 years, unless there's another funding source.
That's right.
And as that number goes up and down over 30 years,
Yep.
it is approved. It is approved. There's a debt exclusion for it, and there's really no, you have to pay it. Once this is approved, it has to be paid.
Just for everybody's information, just like the current school debt exclusion that we have, for the, it is all encompassed in that debt line in the operating budget. So if this same thing happens for that debt exclusion, it would be rolled into the debt line, so it would be very visible to everybody.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Boyardi?
At the last meeting, we discussed, with the tri-board meeting, we discussed getting the news out to the people, to the public. I know my mouth has been getting it out. Everybody I see, I mention it, and I'm sure most of the board does that. We're almost a month, we've got a little over a month. Has anything other than Facebook and forums, and has there a mailing so people are getting the information and accurate information?
Yes, currently working on a informational sheet should be posted on the town's website and out to Facebook by tomorrow. We hope to get that out today, but it didn't make it out today. In addition, the Select Board has invited representatives of Tri-County to their meeting on Monday. So for those who are interested in this topic, and everyone should be interested, you can certainly tune in to the Select Board meeting on Monday evening. We expect the school business manager, Jane Harden, our
Right.
representative, and the chair of the building committee for Tri-County, Mr. Mushnick, will be in attendance, and we'll be discussing the project and answering questions in regards to the project. In addition to that, we are planning some sort of community forum, hopefully within the next few weeks, and we'll be able to advertise that. So it'll be an opportunity for residents to come in and ask questions.
Is there going to be a mailing, though? Because a good portion of the people, a good portion of the public does not go on Facebook. They're not, I mean, there's a big portion of 60-plus that, yes, some do, some don't, but there are a lot of people who aren't on social media, and I don't want that to, I guess I just don't want that to be
Right.
the only way people are.
We will be doing a mailing, just as we do for every election. So there will be a postcard that goes out in the mail to every residents in the community, to let them know of the date of the town meeting, of the election, the time, and the 2 ballots that will be before the voters that day.
But don't you think there should be a mailing for people
If
to
I can,
know
I'm just going to jump in.
about all of this stuff?
My intent, again, if it passes, and this is a committee decision, it's not my decision, but one of my questions coming up would be, the Finance Committee has a limited budget. We have a budget for the, each town meeting's mailing. if we're going to issue a position, we would mail a position. I would hope that we would do that. We don't have the budget to do that. Are there available finances from a different line or from reserve for $2,500 for a mailing or thereabouts?
Well, we could either look to find those funds, or the board could vote itself its own reserve fund transfer to make that happen.
So, again, if
I
we're
just
gonna,
think
if we're
that-
gonna
yeah.
take the position of, if we're gonna make a position, it makes no sense to do that without publishing said position.
Oh, Mr. Chair, can I just ask, I mean, why would we usurp the position of the Select Board? Shouldn't the Select Board be taking a position on this on behalf of the town?
Because the select board is, we're independent of the select board.
No, I
That's
understand.
like saying that just because the select board puts forth a warrant and puts forth a budget, that we have to agree with it. We don't.
But that's a warrant, but this isn't a warrant.
Again, I'm fully aware this is not a warrant, but I do believe it's a budget issue that greatly concerns the town voting residents, and I feel it our duty in terms of making recommendations on items that affect town finances that we would. I mean, that's just my personal position, and I absolutely respect yours.
No, I understand.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Reyes.
I just want to say that I do agree with you that the Finance Committee should take a position, because this is a project that's going to be significantly affecting our budget for when it starts for the next 30 years. And it may have an impact on any future warrants that come up because of the funding. So I just think that we should take a position, yea or nay. I don't think in any way that this would affect the Select Board's position if they choose to take one. I don't think it can hurt to have two separate entities of a town giving, their recommendation, so people can have, say the Select Board doesn't take a position and we do, I just think more information is better. And it can't hurt.
Kathy?
Oh, Mr. Chair. I don't think as a finance committee that we should tell the taxpayers what to vote for or against with their money. I think it's our chore through the finance director and the town administrator to let the voters know what it's going to cost. And what Sarah says, what is down the road? No one has said anything about what the projects that are in the next 3, 4, 5 years that are just as important. And again, I feel like, hey, folks, this is the school, this is what it serves, and this is what it's going to cost everybody at a minimum or over the 30 years. I don't really, I don't support telling people whether or not they should support an educational facility.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Joyce.
I don't know that that's what we're doing. I think what we're trying to do is let them know whether, I've got two now. Very dangerous. I don't know that that's what we're doing. I think what we're trying to do is, as the keepers of the money or the protectors of the money, we are either saying, yes, we feel that this is something that should be, or as the protectors of the money, this is something that we don't feel. And I think a lot of people listen to what the Finance Committee has to say. We're an individual entity. We're not the Select Board. And there have been times that we've not agreed with what the Select Board has recommended. And just because this is not on a warrant article, it's still our finances. And I think it's important that the people who look to us, because we're kind of, I don't know if the word is a gatekeeper, but we are a protector of the finances for the town. And I think we're respected for that. And for that reason, I think we should have an opinion as to whether it's going to be a yay or a nay.
Jen, you care to comment? Okay. Ms. Harden?
Lisa Harden. I don't know if I'm speaking as town clerk or just 56 Walnut Street. But I think we need to keep in mind that this vote is a district-wide vote, and even if Millis votes it down, it could still pass because it's a majority of the people who vote in the entire district. So we need to have, whatever you decide to do about the question of should we support the new school, I think we still need to have an opinion on if it does pass, how do we want to pay for it? And personally, I think it would be better to have a debt exclusion in our pocket than to have it, let's say it doesn't pass in Millis, but it passes district-wide, and the question doesn't pass either, and then we have to come up with the finances some other way, or have another vote. So it doesn't seem like it would hurt to pass the debt exclusion, and you could still vote however you want on the school itself. That's just, and in addition, I think it would be great if we could have some kind of a mailing, even if it's just one piece of paper that goes to every household with more information, whether it gives your opinion or just has information about the project, so that people know. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion for the Millis Finance Committee to take a position about the Tri-County School project for approximately $290 million.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the committee vote to issue an opinion on the Tri-County Vocational Technical High School discussion. No discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
I heard 3 nays. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes.
Could we know who the voters are, Mr. Chair?
Yep,
Okay,
so Peter Berube, yay. Jody Garzon.
Nay.
Peter Underhill.
She's
Nay, okay, sorry.
Peter Underhill.
Yay.
Joyce Boyardi.
Yay.
Michael Crone.
Nay.
John Lohr.
Yay.
Kathy McGinnis.
Nay.
Sarah Reyes.
Yay.
Jen Zarutsky. Okay, so it's just to affirm, 6 in favor, 3 opposed.
Mr. Chairman?
I just wanted to clarify, Jody, were you a nay?
I was a nay.
It's hard to hear you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Crone.
I would move that when the Finance Commission makes its presentation, in whatever fashion it makes it, that both the affirmative and the negative side have a representation in the final, whatever we put out to the public.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? It's been moved and seconded that the committee allow for a minority position to be taken at the time that
Very
the
well said.
position
Thank
is voted. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Garzon.
I'm not sure at what forum we would be able to do that, because if it's not a warrant article in the fall town meeting, then we wouldn't be taking a position at town meeting.
Well, we're going to publicize our position, right? We've just voted that we're going to take a position, so we must publicize our position. When we publicize our position, then both the affirmative and the negative side should be publicized.
Okay, I understand what you're saying better now.
Yeah.
Wait, so for those who voted no on whether to take a position, is that also because you have another position, or you just didn't want to take a position? Because I'm a little unclear about what you mean. Yeah.
Just to clarify, hopefully, next week, we will discuss and vote for or against the actual construction. This is just a step.
Do we take a position or not?
we are going to take a position.
what I thought it would.
My comment would be that our policy provides for minority position, and I believe it's for 6-3 votes, or, with 3 or more nays. I personally, because this is a bit unorthodox admittedly, because we're not talking about the warrant, that I think objectively, it's in our interest to make sure that when we issue a position, which we do typically during discussion in a town meeting, that we would put the pros and cons and why the committee voted the way it does. I have no problem in doing that. Again, putting the cart before the horse, I don't know. The vote could be
Right.
9-0.
Right. Yep.
So I personally don't have a problem with a little leeway, but the committee can vote that. So there is a motion that's been seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Harden?
Lisa Harden, I'm just a little unclear. Are you just going to be taking a position on whether to support the school, or are you going to take a position on both ballots? The debt override, or debt exclusion question?
That's going to be a warrant article.
And the
so
school
that's gonna be
question.
different.
Excuse me?
That'll be a warrant article.
It won't be a warrant article, which is what I was trying to explain at the start of the
So-
discussion.
It's the same.
No, the debt exclusion is going to be a warrant article,
There
right?
will not be a warrant
Oh,
article.
it's going to be a vote.
Yes.
Oh, it's a combined
So-
vote, sorry.
Anyway, there's going to be 2 ballots, so if you're going to take a position on one,
For
I'm just asking, are
consistency
you
and,
taking
for
a position on
consistency
both?
and clarity, we ought to issue a position on both.
Yes.
Yes.
You- The case has been made pretty well that you can't vote for one and not the other. Doesn't make sense. Now, if it passes, there will be a second ballot at some point that authorizes the override. So if Millis votes down the school and votes down the override, but the rest of the district, the aggregate, is a simple majority, then Millis will have to authorize at some point the debt exclusion.
Or it'll come out of the budget.
It's coming out of the budget either way, right? So,
Yeah,
So
but
the-
that exclusion would be outside 2.5.
correct,
so-
correct. But we'll be paying for it one way or
Of
another.
course, but not out of the operating budget.
Correct.
That's a big difference.
Correct. So, I would like to amend the motion to essentially say that we would allow for a minority position on the position consistent with our 6-3 guidelines.
I accept the amendment.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes 9-0. Okay. Let's see. November 6th, town meeting warrant article discussion, Mr. Kaczynski. This can be very brief, or,
Don't worry, it will be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will start with a disclaimer to remind you that the warrant is still open, and the board hasn't formally accepted any articles, but I can certainly inform you of articles that will be under their consideration for inclusion in the warrant. So I will go through these. There are only 9 of them.
Keep it that way.
The first one is fiscal year 2024 operational budget adjustments. This would be mostly having to do with marijuana impact funds and opioid funds, which is a new funding source this year because of the opioid settlements that the town has been a part of. And you'll get more information on that in time. The next item is to appropriate funding for our OPEB audit. We do appropriate funds every other year as required by law to conduct an OPEB audit. We expect that to be under $8,000, so it's not a very large amount of money, but we do need to appropriate it. The next item is our capital projects, which the Capital Planning Committee is now working on. So we'll have a list of several projects there. The next and probably some would consider the largest item would be the approval of a PFAS filtration plant for borrowing authorization for that. Again, we'll have more information on that soon as to estimated amounts. The school has notified us that they need to increase their bus lease authorization slightly to be able to bring on one additional bus. So again, this isn't a request for funding, this is just a borrowing authorization. As through the agreement several years ago, the bus leases are through the operational budget of the school department. We're looking at the possibility of transferring funds to the recently created Special Education Fund, which if those that were on the board recall, was to address mid-year unexpected changes in the special ed needs of the school. If we have several new students that come into the district that need expensive instruction, it would provide sort of a relief valve for that. So right now, I don't believe there are any funds in that account. It was established, so we'll be looking at possibly transferring funds into that account. The next one is to transfer funds to the Chapter 111F fund. This has to do with police and firefighters that are out injured on duty under 111F, and this covers some of the costs associated with that. The next item is to consider transferring funds to the OPEB trust fund, which we've done on a fairly regular basis annually. So we'll be looking at that. And last but not least is to transfer funds back to the stabilization fund, which, you know, we're hoping to be able to put the full $400,000 back in the fall if the free cash numbers allow. That is it.
Does Ms. Johnson know if the free cash numbers will allow? Okay.
This is so late.
Well, it's been submitted. We're waiting.
Yeah.
We're in line. The DOR.
And that's all you're gonna give us? Okay. I respect that. We ask every year and we wait. It's fine. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Gazinski?
All sorts, but not yet.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good.
Okay, moving on to old business, new business. This seems like it's the appropriate place to have a conversation about restructure of this board. As several of you probably know, I think our policy specifies that the board or the officers of the committee will sit for 1 year. I think there's documentation elsewhere that I've read that says that the committee members traditionally or in practice sit for 2 years. I'm well into my 3rd year now, whether it be on oversight of my part or perhaps missed in a meeting minutes, whether we've discussed it before. You know, certainly no intent on my part to reign any longer than I'm supposed to. There are times when I absolutely would relinquish in a heartbeat. And there are, you know, times when, you know, I enjoy, it has nothing to do with enjoy. I'm fulfilled and I'm glad that I'm serving in the capacity that I am. So with that said, I don't think we definitely have not had a vote for the officers of this committee, and so we're going to have that vote. It can be called on at any time by any person of the committee to ask for, you know, the step down of an existing officer of the committee. So I would take motions to do so right now.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. McGinnis.
I think our policy says that reorganization is like the first or second meeting after the calendar. So I would respectfully request that you guide us through this fall town meeting, and then perhaps after the holidays, you'll be happy and, but we're in the midst of a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of months, and so anyway, it does say calendar year, so if we're going to stick by the policy, perhaps my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, so my experience has been that on an appointed day each year, that members are nominated for positions. So if we do it, it's probably the best way to do it, is if someone wants to nominate somebody for a position, they can do that. If nobody nominates anybody, then the current group stays in place. But just pick a day and meeting and, everybody thinks about it, rather than do it tonight, maybe wait till then or another day, but, and, sometimes people nominate, sometimes people don't. But at least it gives it one time every year that possibility can occur.
So you are correct. That's what it does say. I've been remiss in not asking for nominations.
Well,
I also-
nobody's put any out, so.
I know, and I also understand that there's a move afoot to expedite that, given that it hasn't happened on time. So this is, again, the procedures are, they're in black and white, and it can happen at any time. So if there's, I'm grateful that, I don't want to be voted out or midterm or anything like that, but at the same time, I serve just like anybody else. My vote counts for one, like everybody else. And there will always be heavy lifting and serious business before this committee, whether it's before this upcoming town meeting or this ballot that's coming up or the next one and then the one after that. So it can happen at any time. The policy document says that it can happen at any time, and I just wanted to make sure that if anyone feels like I've made a mistake in the sense of not asking for nominations, which I believe I have made a mistake and not asked for nominations, that we correct that. I'm happy to serve to the end of the calendar year and then make sure that Deirdre puts it on the agenda for the first or second meeting of the new calendar year, which is what it says.
And how have you in the past addressed, is the vice chair nominated, or is the vice chair selected by the chair, the clerk? How do you normally do that?
No, I'll nominate.
All nominated?
Yeah. Additionally, we've had some out-of-cycle movements of the chair, given that a former chair is now a select board member, so sometimes things happen out of cycle, so. Okay.
I think that we
Waring?
should wait until after the first of the year.
Okay. So I don't hear any motions, so
That's my motion.
I'll move that we defer nominations until the first or second meeting of the new calendar year.
I second.
we moved and seconded that we defer reorganization or restructure of the committee until the first or second meeting of the new calendar year. Further discussion?
Yes. I think
Mr.
that's
Crum.
the worst time to do it, and I'll explain why. We're in the heart of our whole budget at that point. If we're gonna make any changes, we should make it in September or October when it's quieter. We don't have a lot on our plate for town meeting coming up, so that would be my only suggestion, is that's really a hard time to change, management of the committee, so that would be my only objection to that.
My comment would be, we can do it anytime, including, it is September, it's about to be October, so we can do it now, but what you just suggested would require a change to the policy document, because the policy document says that it will happen in the first or second meeting.
Oh, does
of
it
the
say
calendar
that?
year.
Okay, all right, then that's fine, that's fine.
We can change it. I don't think you're not wrong.
Change it next year, it's fine. I don't wanna make any changes, it's fine.
Yep. Okay, none heard. We're going to move on. Any other old or new business? I'm sorry, yeah, just good. Thank you. She made a motion. It's been seconded. We had some discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. No abstentions. Motion passes 9-0. Thank you. The vice has to have sharp elbows. Okay, meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, can we just get an update on the capital planning? We've just been told that there's going to be a lot of movement on that committee.
Correct. We had a capital planning meeting last week, and we're scheduled for the 26th to discuss them. Right now, there's 4 capital requests. And if you bear with me, I can bring them up as we talk here, hopefully.
Sorry.
New addition to 26 Beach Street, is that on?
So we talked on the 13th of September, talking about the library lighting, which is a Phase 2 for the lighting system, which we already planned prior to that, so that's unexpected.
Do you know how much yet, through the chair?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. There's recent problems with the VMB building, according to Mr. Kaczynski. So, and there's also problems at the fire station. So we're looking to see what the repair costs would be regarding those two buildings. DPW has made a request.
Paying off the building.
So there's a couple things here that kind of, hang on, let me just read my notes. They're making a capital request to replace a van, does not have a snow plow. This would be for water and sewer only. And Jim McKay talked about, or he's going to be invited to the next meeting, talking about the PFAS. And the current design for well number 3, I believe, is 75% complete. And we're going to be talking about funds for that. And then, Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yes, the fire chief had put in a request for funds for new antennas to be placed on a cell tower that will be going up on Norfolk Road probably next summer, but he's looking for funds to be able to put brand-new communication equipment on top of that tower. They have some areas in town where they have some serious shadows that are making it difficult to communicate in areas of town. So I'm sure he'd be happy to come in later and discuss that. He'll be discussing that with the capital committee next week, and he'd be happy to come in, I'm sure, later for the finance committee if there's any questions about that. And the library lighting system is $110,000. That's the number that's been submitted. The issues with the VMB and the fire station are centered around the HVAC system. And we're hoping that we can address those repairs under $75,000. But we're still getting some additional information from Renaud, which is our HVAC contractor.
Do you know if those antennas would service all town vehicles with radios, police, DPW?
Yes.
Okay.
It's my understanding that they would, but we can get clarification on that. from
We'll
the
find
chief.
out soon enough.
We
but
certainly will
that's the
have
question.
access on the tower itself for all those types of communication, DPW, fire, police, et cetera. The council on aging vans.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, is this tower being put up by a private company?
Yes.
And has through the chair again, has there been rent set on the amount received?
The final contract has not been signed yet. There was a successful bidder, but we're still working out some contract issues with the bidder. And so the select board has not approved the final contract yet. So once, but the bid did allocate annual rent of $30,000.
And through the chair again, has that been previously, that amount? I know up on Crestview, the income derived therefrom was for maintenance and putting all new roads in on Crestview. Has this money been earmarked for something, Mr. Chair?
It's basically from the discussions we've had, the tower is actually going up on property overseen by the Water Enterprise.
Right.
So I would expect those funds to go to the Water Enterprise.
Could you please repeat that?
I would expect those funds to go to the Water Enterprise.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
Does
It took a long
the
time to get it.
contractor who installs or who owns the antennas, are they able to extend that service elsewhere commercially? In other words, could they provide cell service, and is that why they pay rent?
Yes, the company that is putting up the tower is going to be subleasing space on the tower to different cell phone companies The space for the town is at no charge to the town.
Okay.
And that's at the very top of the tower that we receive the space.
That's good.
And then below that, they attach, bless you, they attach antennas to their subleasees, Verizon, AT&T, so forth.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Lohr? Okay. Meeting minutes.
Well done.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Underhill.
I move that the Finance Committee vote to approve the meeting minutes from August 30th, 2023.
Second.
Moved and seconded, the committee vote to approve minutes from the August 30th meeting. Discussion? None heard? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstaining.
Okay, motion passes 8-0 with one abstention. Deirdre?
Got it.
And I thank you very much for the quality minutes as usual.
Yes.
I'll take a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moving second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Go ahead, Deirdre, for administrative purposes.
I was just gonna say, because I'm not home all week or I'm in federal trial, the only thing I have for next week is vote the position on the Tri-County project. Is there anything else I should add to that?
I want to hear from DPW.
On.
Whatever they
So is that meeting,
put on the warrant.
are we scheduling a meeting for the 27th?
We will meet next week. Yes.
On the 27th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to post the agenda probably by Sunday or Monday at the latest.
Of course. Yep.
Or
I'll have inputs to you no later than Friday.
Okay,
You
great.
could post the meeting, but I'll give you the agenda no later than Friday. And I just wanted to say administratively that Deirdre has put some important dates at the bottom of tonight's agenda, just to mark your calendars, town meeting, and then we'll have, our write-ups are due on those, in time for those other milestones to be met, which aren't very intensive during fall town meeting cycle, but important nonetheless. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.